Hi guys, today we're heading over to K&K Custom Cycles in Palm Harbor, Florida, where father and son team Ken and Kyle Boyle are going to walk us through the P-HD3FR package installation. Let's go check it out. To get things started, place a towel on the bike's front fender to protect against bumps and dings. Remove the seat to gain access to the battery. Remove the two bolts to allow the other wire harnesses in the way to be moved aside. Then disconnect both the positive and negative main power wires from it. Remove the outer fairing by removing the 4 bolts holding it in the back and the 3 holding it in the front. Along with the headlight harness. Release the wire harnesses held over the top of the black plate on top of the radio by the factory Christmas tree fasteners. Remove the 4 factory screws that go through the top of the black plate. Remove the harnesses and bolts holding the brake side speaker pod in place. Then remove it from the bike and set it on a table. Undo the 4 screws that hold the factory speaker to the cabinet and carefully disconnect the speaker wires one at a time. Replace the factory speaker with the Kenwood XM65F speaker by reattaching the factory speaker wires, noting they will only go on one way. Use the factory screws you just removed to secure the new speaker in place. Undo the 3 factory screws holding the factory grille in place and install the supplied metal mesh grille in its place. Ensure that the Kenwood grille is oriented so that the keyhole is positioned closest to the radio, and secure it in place using the factory screws you just removed. When installing these on a Road Glide model, you'll observe that the factory grilles remain. Reinstall the speaker cabinet. Repeat the speaker replacement process on the clutch side, noting that if you're installing a 3rd amp, the 3rd amp mounting bracket will need to be attached to this speaker cabinet at this time. Place the amplifier mounting plate over the top of the radio. It will only go on one way. Use the factory screws to secure the mounting plate in place and mount the amplifier on the left-hand side of the plate, positioning the output pigtail so it's sitting on top of the amp. Plug the 8-pin input harness into the amp and then plug in the front output harness with brown-black and blue-black wires into the black 4-pin plug on the pigtail coming out of the amp. Attach the main wire harness to the tab on the front of the amplifier's mounting plate using the factory Christmas tree fastener. Remove the 2-pin receiver output harness connector and plug it into the amp's green-black 2-pin input bypass harness connector. From the amp, take the 2-pin speaker harness connector with blue-black wires and plug it into the brake side speaker cabinet connector. Repeat the process on the clutch side by removing the 2-pin receiver output harness connector and plugging it into the amp's yellow-black 2-pin input bypass harness connector. Then take the amp's 2-pin speaker harness connector with brown-black wires and plug it into the clutch side speaker cabinet connector. The length of the power harness will pass under the inner fairing where the main wiring harness passes through the bike. Mount the 2nd amp to the right-hand side of the mounting plate and position the black 4-pin pigtail over the top of the amp. Plug in the amp's input bypass harness with 2 4-pin blue connectors on it. Plug the male blue connector from the 2nd amp into the female blue connector from the 1st amp. Plug in the 2nd amp's main power harness and then run both power harnesses to the battery at the same time. Do not reattach the power wires to the battery yet. Loosen the tank console and run the wires underneath it, over the gas tank. There is a provision on the front of the tank console for wires to pass. If you prefer, you can remove the gas tank and run the harness along the backbone of the bike's frame. Zip tie the amplifier harness and the bike's factory harness together. If you're also planning to install a set of lower pod speakers, a third amplifier can be installed using the CA-PLT14SG3 mounting plate and mounting it to the right of the secondary amp as shown. If you're installing this package on a road glide, the amplifiers are mounted to the bracket in a different orientation as shown here. A third amplifier can be installed using the CA-PLT14RG3 mounting plate and mounting it to the left of the secondary amp as shown. Clean up and secure any wiring inside of your fairing using the zip ties supplied. For the best possible FM reception, do not attach any of the amplifier wiring to any factory antenna wires. Next, remove the saddlebags and place them on a stable working surface covered with a blanket. Remove the lid of the saddlebag, then remove the inner lining with the latch mechanism. Apply tape and drill a hole for the speaker wires, starting with a small pilot hole and increasing incrementally until you have a 5/8 inch hole. Install the speaker wire and grommet. Remove the inner lid lining and factory latch mechanism. Fix the template to the saddlebag using the screws provided. Using smaller sized bits, drill keyholes at the ends of the template slots, then widen these with larger bits until the holes are the correct size. Mark the slot cut lines with a scriber. Cut out the slots using a jigsaw or an air saw, cutting through the template tabs as you go. Remove the cutout and template and size test the speaker grill. Trim as needed to ensure a good fit. Refit the inner lid lining and factory latch mechanism. Fit the speaker adapter in the lid and screw it into place, fastening the speaker grill at the same time. Be sure to screw in the mounting plates in the order shown here, noting to also add the rubber washer in the correct location for each lid. Install the speaker onto the speaker adapter using the self-threading screws provided. Reattach the lid to the saddlebag and the saddlebag to the bike. Clean the adhesion points for the zip tie anchors with rubbing alcohol, then position the zip tie anchors to create a path for the speaker wires. Connect the speaker wires to the speakers and adjust them to allow the lid to open and close without obstruction. Route the other end of the speaker wire past the battery and up into the seat compartment. Repeat this process with a speaker and saddlebag on the other side of the bike. Route the long braided wire harness from the amplifier underneath the tank or tank center console to the seat compartment and connect the wires from each saddlebag to it. Connect the other end of this harness to the clutch side amp's 4-pin speaker harness. Temporarily connect the amp's power wire, red, and ground wire, black, to the battery and test the sound. Secure all wiring, then refit the fuel tank and then permanently attach the power and ground wires to the battery. Refit the seat, and then refit the front fairing. Lastly, turn the bike's handlebars fully in both directions to ensure there are no obstructions, and you're all set.